Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, Tulsa's source for great gardens, southwoodgardencenter.com. And the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing. Today on Oklahoma Gardening, host Casey Hentges digs potatoes in a vegetable garden at Southern Hills Country Club. We have some great tropical fruits that you can grow at home. At the Food Bank of Eastern Oklahoma, Barbara Brown visits with their executive chef about some of the innovative ways that they are combating hunger. And then Chef Jeff and Barbara cook a pasta with fresh vegetable sauce.
Joining us today is Wilson Neese, and we're actually at Southern Hills where he is the horticulture manager. And Wilson, we came because it's time to harvest potatoes.
It is, yeah. You can see that the foliage is starting to die back and the temperatures are warm, and so we took a couple weeks ago just to kind of test the size and see what they are. So right now they are ready to dig up and see what we have.
Let's see what we got. It's always a little bit of a magic treasure,
is,
right?
Yeah, to see what's going on.
Look at that.
So these Yukon Gold.
He wants to help out.
He does. He's always a helper right there.
So these are all Yukon Gold that we're digging.
They are. So last time we dug, they were a little bit too small. We'd get about maybe 2 that were decent size, and so this is kind of what we want to see right now.
All right, well, let's keep on digging. Thanks, Wilson.
Yeah.
Today we're at the Food Bank in Eastern Oklahoma, and I'd like to introduce you to Jeff Marlowe, who's the executive chef here. And Jeff, that is something that's really unusual for a food bank to actually have a chef, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We're actually part of a network called Feeding America here around the United States, and we were the first food bank in the U.S. to have a culinary kitchen, to be able to produce meals that come in with food that's perishable from local grocers that would normally be thrown away, and put it back in the community to people in need.
And you actually do some of your own production here as well, as far as foods are concerned. What kinds of things are you growing?
In our garden out here, we have a community garden, is what we call it, and we have just basic vegetables. We have squash, zucchini, eggplant, tomatoes, lots of different herbs, onions, peppers, a lot of great vegetables like that we're able to incorporate into our food and just create that healthy eating lifestyle to our clients.
What do you actually do as far as production here in the kitchen? What do you use the kitchen for?
So we've got a lot of different programs that we're doing here in the community kitchen. We have 2 mobile eatery food trucks that we take out every day, and we use the food that we're preparing that's donated to us from our local grocers here, and take it out and serve a hot meal off of our food trucks completely for free. So that's one of the things that we're doing with it. We have agencies that we're partners with that we prepare meals. We either freeze them or we send them out hot, depending on their capacity of what level they have to either just serve the food, or they can rewarm the food. They might not have chefs and the manpower to prep and all the ingredients to do the food. So we do a lot of different things like that. We also teach a culinary trade program here at the food bank out of our community kitchen, and it's a 16-week program that we teach with anyone. We don't discriminate against anyone that just kind of needs a second chance in life.
So you've been doing this for a while now. What is your favorite thing about working here?
I love being a chef, I love the creativity, but what's most important is that what I've done with my skills that I've been blessed with is I'm using those to serve my community in need.
When you are going through and you're looking, what inspires you? What makes you decide, well, today we're going to do this or today we're going to do that with this particular item? Is it a combination of ingredients that you find, or?
We have a key ingredient list that we keep, and they have it down in the warehouse. We have it here in the kitchen, and so with our key ingredients, we know that protein's probably the hardest thing that we come across, and so that's why I was telling you, rotisserie chickens come to us by the thousands weekly, because every local grocer has the grab-and-go chickens and the ribs and things like that. So at the end of the day, they're not able to do anything with them, but they're still very usable. We get those and we process them down and we create all different kinds of dishes. So when we get different kinds of proteins and we see what we have fresh, it depends on what the season is, what kind of vegetables are coming in, then we prepare our meal off of that. You know, if there's lots of times that we have lots of different rices, lots of different pastas, potatoes, when the potatoes are in season, we have lots of different potatoes. And so we just try to incorporate that. I don't like to do the 3-2-1. I call it the 3-2-1 method, where you have on the plate you have the protein, the starch, the vegetable. We do a lot of that, but I like to incorporate all that into a dish where I don't like to call it a casserole style, but that pretty much is what it is. Because with our clients, especially young kids, it's hard to get them to try new things, okay? And so they always want to eat that starch and they want to eat that protein, but they want to pass that vegetable up a lot. But if you mix it in and incorporate it in, and it's kind of hidden, but it's healthy and it tastes really good, and it's something they recognize, then they'll eat it. And I feel like they're getting that nutrition that they might have left out if you do that 3-2-1 method.
What kind of feedback do you get from clientele?
People just tell us how thankful they are, and you know, it's really cool. We know that we're making a difference because you'll have kids come down there that are barefooted with no socks. I mean, running down there, and they might have been out like in the summertime. They might be playing basketball or something. They'll come down with their ball in their hand, and they'll get their meal, and they'll sit right there on the curb right by our truck, and they'll start eating, and they'll eat that whole meal up, and sometimes hang around and see if we have seconds. And so that's what's really cool about our job, is that we see it, we see the smiles on our face, and we know that we're making a difference in people's lives out there in our community.
Thank you, Jeff. I really want to appreciate you being with us today.
Well, thank you for coming out and showing interest in our food bank here.
Sure thing.
While we often talk about warm season fruits growing in our vegetable garden, tropical fruits are also becoming more popular for home gardeners. The Kalamazoo orange behind me here and also the Meyer lemon are both readily available in nurseries and popular amongst home gardeners. Now, both only get to be about 6 to 10 feet tall, so they're somewhat manageable. You will be able to put them out during the warm seasons, but you'll have to bring those in the winter time. They are evergreen, however, so they provide some nice foliage if you do bring them indoors. The best thing about them is you only need one tree because they are self-pollinated. As soon as you start to see some flowers come on them, you will smell amazing fragrance as well. Now, those flowers will give way to the fruit. You might notice that a few of the flowers will drop off a little bit, or even some of the smaller fruit might drop, and that's just normal. That's a normal process that the plant goes through. The best way to take care of your citrus is to provide it with a citrus fertilizer in the growing season of April through September. And then you'll want to hold that fertilizer during those winter months, but continue to water it slightly. But it won't be growing quite as actively. If you've noticed that you've had yours for a while and it's not ever blooming, then what you'll want to do is actually pull some of that water off of it, just hold the water and allow it to wilt a little bit. And that will actually stress the plant, and when a plant is stressed, it tends to want to reproduce. In order for it to reproduce, it's going to need to produce flowers and of course those fruits for you. So that's just one little trick to get your citrus fruits to produce. The Calamodin orange is also a true to type seed, and so you could plant that seed and get a producing tree in 2 years. Now let's move on to another tropical plant, and we've got some avocados here. And actually we are growing an avocado tree. Now these like a lot of bright light, but initially when you're growing these, we're gonna start with an avocado that we got at the grocery store. What you're going to do is just cut your avocado in half, twist it, and there we've got our rather large seed. You're going to spin it to get it out of there. So once you get your avocado seed out, you're going to take 3 toothpicks and first identify kind of the point to the seed. There's a little bit of a point right here. You can see how this end is a little bit flatter. You're going to want that point to go towards the top, and then just press. It's not too tough that you can't just push your toothpicks into the seed. Kind of do it evenly around your seed. And you want to do it about 1/3 of the way down. And this is so that you can then put it in a jar of water, and the majority of the seed is sitting below the water, but the tip is still above the water. So you'll let this set for a while, and in about 2 to 6 weeks you'll start to see that seed crack open, and you'll see a root go down into the water and eventually a sprout coming up. Now, avocados tend to be more of kind of a home experiment to grow a tropical fruit. Here, it will take a while in order for you to get a tree this size, and it will definitely take a little bit longer to get a fruit, about 6 to 13 years to get a fruit. Also, avocado trees tend to bloom and not necessarily then go on to create a fruit. So don't get too excited when you do see a flower. It doesn't necessarily mean it will fruit for you. Now the next thing, as we wait for our avocado to grow, let's go ahead and talk about pineapples. So here we have a mature pineapple plant. You can see a pineapple is a bromeliad, and the thing about bromeliads is once they flower and they produce a fruit, so the pineapple is the fruit of this particular bromeliad, once it produces that flower, the plant is dead. Hopefully you've got some side pups or something like that that will then go on to propagate that plant. Now, there's a way to do this at home also. So we go to the store and we buy a pineapple. So you're going to want to twist the top of the pineapple out of the actual fruit. So you're not even damaging anything that you're going to eat. Once you've done that, then you'll get a little pot of potting soil and go ahead and plant it up in our potting soil. So again, you're going to let this set for a while. This center point will continue to grow, and as it establishes more roots, you will have another bromeliad plant that when it flowers, you'll get a pineapple fruit. When you plant up your plant, you want to make sure that you water it regularly, but also that it has good drainage as well. Once you start to see a flower on your plant, it can still take up to 6 months for it to ripen. Finally, if you're really looking for a tropical plant to add to your collection, you might try a coconut. This is an actual coconut nut. Inside of this is what we might recognize as the coconut. This has got the husk around it. You can see we've got a cross section of one, kind of how it looks. This actually allows a lot of buoyancy so that in their native environment they float along and land in the beach. Now, typically you'll hear me say you plant a seed 2.5 times the diameter of that seed, but not in the case of coconuts. You can see over here we've got a coconut that's potted up. It's actually broke through that husk and is starting to grow out. It is a coconut palm, so it will be a palm tree that we're growing. And they need a lot of bright light. Again, this is kind of a novelty to grow in your home garden and would only be hardy during the summer times. Because coconuts typically grow on a sandy beach, they do need frequent watering, but they need very good drainage. Because coconuts tend to be so cold sensitive, they tend to also be very short-lived here in Oklahoma, and we usually only get about 5 to 6 years out of them in a container. As we wait for our avocado, about 13 years to get a fruit on it, 6 more months for our pineapple to ripe, I sure am thankful for the tropical fruit farmers and our local grocery stores so that we don't have to wait years before we get to enjoy some guacamole.
Well, we're here at the food bank today. Chef is going to show us how to prepare, or how he prepares some of the foods that go out of the kitchen. So this is one that is going out on a food truck today, or similar to. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can talk to us about how you get creative with the ideas and with the ingredients.
Well, thank you, Barbara, and welcome to the food bank.
Thank
here.
you.
We're glad to have you guys out. This is a today we're preparing a just a basic marinara kind of combination of lots of different vegetables, pasta, a ratatouille style pasta that we turned into a bolognese by adding beef and different other vegetables that came from our local garden here at the Community Food Bank of Eastern Oklahoma. So what we do is when we come in daily, we see what we have that's fresh and what needs to be used, kind of that FIFO, first in, first out method that you use in a kitchen. And see what our proteins are, and then we create our menus. There's a lot of times that we're able to write a couple of menus a day ahead, you know, but then there's days that it's kind of we go with the flow, and it's what I was talking about earlier, that kind of mystery basket style cooking, you know, which makes it fun. We like to have lots of vegetables. We really like to cook healthy in our meals that we send out to our community in need.
Okay, well, why don't you get started and show us how it all goes together.
Okay, so we making with the tomato sauce, the marinara pomodoro style. I've got fresh tomatoes here from our garden, and I've already stewed them here. I've got some that are already stewed here. But what we like to do is we like to Monday concasse them, and we're not actually going to take the seed out, but what we do is we make a little slit in them, and then we would boil our tomato. I like to, so what I'm going to do here is I've got my skillet already getting hot. I like to start out with a hot skillet, and you know, we'd call that sauteing because we want a nice caramelization on our vegetables. I'm going to start out with quite a bit of olive oil here. So this is an extra virgin olive oil, and really, I know I'm going to contradict myself here because I'm using extra virgin, but it's what we had, and that's what we do here at the food bank. We use the products that we have, but if I was making this at the house, I would probably use a pomace olive oil because extra virgin, it's so much more expensive. That's what you really use for dressings and finishing products. And when you're cooking and burning, it's just, you know, it's better to buy that cheaper oil because that you're not going to be able to tell the difference in the end. And so I start with my garlic and my vegetables after my oil's gotten nice and hot there. And then we'll add all of our nice vegetables to this. I've got eggplant.
Now, are you deciding on how much based on what you have, or
what
you've experienced in before? There was a lot of garlic there.
Experience, and it's all by feel, by sight, smell. You know, using those senses that we have, and just by doing it for as long as I have.
The smell part's working really well right now.
Some onion. Okay. And then I'm going to let these saute up for a little bit by themselves because it's going to take these vegetables a lot longer to stew down and get soft to the consistency that I want before the tomatoes are. So now that we've got our tomatoes stewed down, what I want to do now is take the skin off of them. Okay. So what I would do is pull them out of the hot water, and I'm going to drop them in an ice bath. All right. And you can just drop them down in there for 10-15 seconds to where you're able to handle them, and then you pull it up, and that skin just falls right off of it. Peels off very nicely. Okay. And they can still be hot. You can drop it back down in there till you're ready to put them in your sauce.
How long do you generally leave them in the water?
In the water. So I go about, if the water's boiling when you put them in there, I go about 3 minutes max. Okay. So from that point, you would take them and you're going to cut them down just a little bit. All right. If you wanted to do the true Monde Concassé, you could take the seeds out of them. I'm not too worried about the seeds. I'm just going to go with the whole tomato into our sauce. Then I've already even prepared ahead of time with our mise en place and got some other stewed tomatoes.
So how long are you going to let this
I'm
simmer
going to let this stew here for about 10 minutes, but before we finish it off, I'm going to add some of our fresh herbs from our garden, okay? And these are some of my favorite herbs. Give that a little stir so it can stew down in with it. I'm going to throw a little S&P in there, salt and pepper. Then one other ingredient I want to add to this barb before we let it kind of go through its final stages in about the last 10-15 minutes while it's stewing down is I'm going to add just a little bit of sugar to it, okay? Because there's a lot of acid in this sauce right here right now, and so I feel like that sugar just kind of helps it tone it down some and make it more recognizable to the palate.
Yeah. There's a lot of concern about the amount of sugar that people are eating, but I think when you're adding it intentionally, you're talking about a different thing than getting it mixed in with something where you're not expecting it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're just going to take about a nice little tablespoon there, and a couple teaspoons of sugar. So we'll let this stew down for about 10 minutes before we take our immersion blender to it. So now that we've got this blended down to the consistency that we're looking for, Barb, I'm going to go ahead and add our cooked rotini pasta to it, and then we'll get ready to serve it in a bowl.
All right.
To dish up here.
I'll give you this much and let you go from there.
Okay. So we've got our cooked rotini pasta, and it's going to coat really, really well.
That's one of the nice things about the rotini. It's got all those little capture places, so you get lots of sauce in every bite.
I love rotini, and this being a garden rotini, it's made with tomato and spinach, and so it's kind of a healthier option of pasta. So give that a good stir in there, and you could probably even use a little more pasta to the sauce consistency, but that's all right. So then from there, what we would do is we would do a nice little bowl of pasta. Okay. Finish off with a little shredded Parmigiano here. And maybe even garnish with some of our herbs that we started with. I'll throw some little fresh herbs in there, but that's just something simple like that is our garden rotini fresh vegetable pasta.
Thank you, Jeff.
My pleasure.
This has been awesome.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
There are lots of great horticultural events this time of year. Be sure and consider these activities when you're making your plans for the weeks ahead. Next week, we are back in Tulsa to explore more of the vegetable garden at Southern Hills Country Club and find out what they do with their harvest. We head out to the highway to get an update on the roadside monarch habitat research. And we visit with a watermelon grower in Antlers, Oklahoma. We hope you join us then for more TV you'll grow to love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.